Brian Helwig, Vice President of Operations, Netwrix Corporation. I started running finance about 6 months ago, and I came about that very much so in a non-traditional way. I began with Netwrix just over 2.5 years ago. I came into the organization running customer support, professional services, and the sales engineering team. And as my role evolved, I took on things like HR and IT and legal, and eventually ended up doing kind of almost the opposite. Instead of being the CFO who comes from the finance background, taking on all the other ancillary components like HR and IT, I came up through the operations background, and I've now been able to successfully start to build and implement the financial processes and stability of the organization. Yeah, so my finance background, obviously I have a business degree from Western Governors University. I also have a executive certificate from Wharton and actually technical services, ironically enough. A lot of the finance background that I've had a couple of small businesses that I've run in my past, and I've been successful at selling. And really understanding the lower end debit and credit kind of life was something that I've always sort of been accustomed to as I've gone along. So my background is really kind of sort of interesting. I started a company when I was 20 years old. It was primarily a hobby. It was really writing a little bit of code, working for a large corporation, and then in the evenings I was doing infrastructure like network configuration and things like that. Once I had got it up and running, I decided that I didn't really want to be the CEO of an organization. So I went ahead and sold it to one of the local one of my competitors actually bought the company, and I moved to Colorado. I moved there because I always wanted to be there and always wanted to go, so why not? I was young at the time. I was 21 years old, and had actually just got out on my own. So I went ahead and began working with inside just general IT consulting, general IT infrastructure, and moved my way up into development and systems engineering. And then eventually ended up managing developers, other IT professionals. I became very, very involved in the supply chain logistics and EDI, enterprise application integration as well. I worked for a company called Sterling Commerce, where I was able to run their entire customer support organization. And from there, I had the opportunity to go work up in Boston for a company that Sterling had purchased called Yantra, doing also supply chain logistics and everything regarding warehouse management and supply chain distribution. So having that understanding of how all of these intricate parts work at the software level also means you have to understand how they work at the process level, which means you have to have some kind of an idea of how this affects business day to day, day in, day out, finance, and the way that the lead to cash process works. Netwrix Corporation actually is an amazing organization. We've grown about 128% last year. We've been on the Deloitte 500 list the last 2 years. We've made the Inc. 500 as well. What's great about Netwrix is the products we develop. The products really are the who, what, when, where, and why of change auditing throughout the entire IT infrastructure. So if anybody touches the configuration of file in any application, our solution provides that insight and allows other executives, including CFOs, COOs, CEOs, to be able to make decisions based off of risk, who has access to what the exposure may be, kind of overall. It's a really cool product.